Our world is full of mysteries, and mankind has always been fascinated by the unknown. Come with us on a journey into the unknown, where we will search out answers to the universe's most intriguing questions. We will delve into the murky realms of our world, where mysteries linger in the shadows and allure us with their secrets. We will travel to the ancient pyramids of Giza, to the mystic forests of the Great Northwest, and amidst the boundless expanse of the universe. Embark on an odyssey with us as we unravel the universe's greatest enigmas and seek the truth that lies shrouded in mystery. I am Ashley Hamilton, and it is my pleasure to introduce you to Nights Around the Fire. Thank you for joining in. I'm here with David Tomsick today. He did not fire me, guys. I am here.
It's good to have Ashley back. For those of you that haven't watched us before, Ashley was a regular guest on the Tomsick Analysis and kind of drifted away for a while, had some personal issues, physical issues she had to deal with, and she's healthy now, and she's back, so I'm so happy that she is, and I'm glad you can join us on Nights Around the Fire. This is going to be fun.
I am. I'm glad to be back, and I just want to make a little note here. I am taking some medication, so I may experience brain fog. So if I happen to not be as talkative today or not answer questions in a whole lot of detail, please ignore it. Just move on.
Just nothing to see here.
Yeah, nothing to see here. Just keep going.
Well, today's topic, though, we both looked into this. I've actually been looking at this for a long time. Missing 411. This is people missing in national forests. I know many of you probably have watched David Paulides' videos and his books on this particular topic, and there's tons of them. Ashley, I think you saw how many videos that were just posted.
I saw, it felt like 40 videos just within that month, and I had never heard of this gentleman before until David had sent me his name and introduced me to him.
Yeah, it's basically, for those of you that don't know, he was a policeman, and he decided to get into investigating people missing in national parks. Mm-hmm. Now, I got a little information about national parks, and it's kind of disturbing to me. There's 83.6 million acres of national park in America. That is a lot. Mm-hmm. And the disappearances that are reported, actually, this is odd.
Only reported
around 100, maybe it could be 1,000. But really what we found out is most of these things aren't documented. So they don't have a clue how many people are missing.
Or truly, missing.
They don't know. Now we're going to go over a case or two here, but we're going to talk about, right off the bat, if you've ever been in a national park, if you've ever been in a forest, many hunters go to the forests, to woods, but that necessarily doesn't mean they're in a forest.
No.
And
not to that magnitude.
No. We can hunt locally here, but once you get into the big time places, the Appalachians, the Allegheny Forest, you go up north to Oregon, there's some thick, frightening, dark places to go.
Beautiful, but also very mysterious.
Now, I asked Ashley, would she go on an expedition to one of these places to maybe look into these particular types of things? And she said,
no. I will give a whole lot of more support from right here.
Yeah, she's afraid that if a bear attacked, she'd be the one dragged off.
I would be the smallest. I would be the most vulnerable. Mountain lion would pass me like, it's smaller than a deer. I could get that. And it could.
I can see us chasing that mountain lion right through the woods as she's screaming. We'll try to catch her, but I can understand. It is frightening. And I've been in a couple of forests, and I can tell you it is frightening to think about how thick and deep and dark these things can be. It's easy to lose where you're at. Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming that a lot of these disappearances, Ashley, are people who just get lost in these forests.
Mm-hmm. Either lost or even people who think that they know best and they can, go out and they'll be perfectly fine and think nothing of it, and then they're never heard from again.
Gone. Gone without a trace. Now, one particular case that we looked at here, and we're just going to look at this one. It was one of the first, I think, that was investigated, one of the biggest investigations, I think, in history. Now, this is an article from, ATI. It's by a woman named Genevieve Carlton. And it said, inside the disappearance of Dennis Martin, the 6-year-old boy who vanished in the Smoky Mountains. You ever been to the Smokies?
I have not, but I've seen them, and they are very pretty from a distance.
Again, we're going to stay at a distance with Ashley here. Now, right off the bat, it says, in June of 1969, Dennis Lloyd Martin walked off to play a prank on his dad and never returned, sparking the largest search effort in history of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. This boy's a cute little boy, and basically this happened on June 13th, 1969, so this is quite a ways away, time away. Now, right off the bat here, these people were experienced hikers. They've hiked before. They were in this particular forest before. And, he wasn't that far away. This is what's interesting, is that many of these disappearances, these people were not far away from their families or friends. A lot of hikers, of course, it's a different story, but many of these disappearances were right off the bat. People were really close by, and they just disappeared without a trace.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about how you can be so close to someone and then maybe just turn around and they just happen to be gone. And then you worry about what happened to them. Where are they? Is something going to happen to me next? What's going on? And there's just all that panic in your mind, just racing of what just happened, what's going to happen, what will, just anything.
Well, I know and I know you've done this. You drive up through the mountains coming up into Pennsylvania. I go to Virginia a lot, and I know you travel down to Florida. And you go up through the mountains, you look at these forests, and you kind of imagine, how would you even navigate these places? What's down there? And let's be honest, since our ancestors from Europe, in our case from Europe, there was always stories about crazy things in the woods, wasn't there?
Skinwalkers.
Bigfoot, one of my favorite topics here. And of course, fairies and werewolves and all the things that, man has kind of comprised in his mind to answer the questions, what happens in the woods when you're the only one out there? What goes on there? And Ashley mentioned skinwalkers. It's one of the interesting things. Now, that's a Navajo, I believe, legend. I believe. Probably not just now. Maybe it's not just a Navajo. Now, I guess a skinwalker supposedly is a demon. And of course, there are demons. We know this as a fact. We know, and we're both Christians, so we know that.
That's what I believe it is. I don't know necessarily what other people claim. I think they think it's an entire creature in of itself.
Well, I think the Navajo believe it is it's a human that turned into a demon. And some believe it's just a demon. But either way, it's the same thing, right? Yep. These are not nice creatures. And it kind of means, and I cannot pronounce, unless you can pronounce.
No, I can't even read your handwriting to try and pronounce.
I write very badly. I can't read what I wrote. But it's a Navajo name.
Yeah, we'll put it down in the caption.
Yeah, maybe we'll put that in the captions. It means it goes on all fours. And if you ever watched a lot of shows on TV, they try to build what these things look like. And if you go by what the Navajo Nation has said, they can be 8 foot tall, thin, muscular, weird looking, arms down to their feet with claws that are like 4 or 5 inches long. And these things have a kind of a wolf's looking head. That would be frightening, I think.
Kind of sounds like the Slender Man. Notice how a lot of tales tend to have tall, lengthy creatures that are somewhat human in resemblance, but they're also not.
Yes, that's true.
Because I think the Slender Man is supposedly faceless or has a mouthful of teeth but no eyes. And he has long appendages, real skinny, tall.
Frightening. I don't know that I'd want to be in front of these people either, these creatures either. But again, these are things people talk about when they have really no answers. And we will never know. Let's be honest. We're here to kind of talk about mysteries. We seek them, right? We were just talking about this. We seek them.
We seem to be, a lot of people, just not us in general, but people in general seem to be drawn to the unknown and the curiosities of mysteries.
Absolutely. I know I was as a young person. And, I was, since then, I've mentioned on some of my videos, I've kind of debunked a lot of the things I looked into. But there's things that nobody seems to be able to debunk or to figure out. Now, with this little boy, he was 6 years old, and he went out, and it says here that the youngest in his family, Dennis, must have been excited to go on the annual Father's Day hike in the Smoky Mountains. So this is really just horrible that this boy he looked forward to this every year.
Mm-hmm. It was a special occasion, and no one would have expected that special day will now be shrouded with the loss of.
Now, you might want to know what happened. It says on June 14th, 1969, the hikers reached Spence Field. After meeting up with another family, Dennis and his brother split off with the two other boys to play together. William Martin watched as the children whispered a plan to sneak up on the adults. The boys melted into the forest, though Dennis's red shirt stood out against the greenery. Now, this kid had a red shirt. Mm-hmm. Right off the cuff here, we would think that this is somebody you'd easily find. And this was a field, and there were some woods, but it wasn't as if their view was obstructed here completely.
It wasn't highly dense wooded area.
And sadly, it says, soon the elder boy jumped out laughing, but Dennis was no longer with them. As the minutes ticked by, William knew something was wrong. He began calling for Dennis, confident the boy would respond, but there was no answer. Well, basically, a thunderstorm happened after that night, and it was really a terrible thunderstorm. They brought in the authorities, and again, one of the largest recovery efforts ever made there in the Smoky Mountains. Losing my voice. And this boy was never found. Now, this happens a lot. Mm-hmm. A lot more than we realize. And David Paulides, he kind of made a living off this, obviously. I mean, he's one of the most well-known investigators in the country, now probably around the world, because he's been in other countries. And, you wonder, and I guess we can ponder, why we don't get the full information about these missing persons. I know that he has made claims that it's sometimes very difficult to get information from the park rangers. And in fact, as I mentioned, many of these people aren't even put in a statistic. There isn't anybody keeping track nationwide from each park.
And you wonder if, maybe there's something going on in these forests that park rangers are aware of, or at least the top of the top, maybe not the people under them, and they don't want to give out too much information because that would then reveal some of the secret things that are happening, whether it be sex trafficking, drug trafficking, any, the occult stuff, anything like that. You never know.
I guess if you want to hide, that's the place to be. Mm-hmm. I mean, let's be honest. How long has this Bigfoot legend gone on?
I have no idea.
I can tell you it's a long time. And, having researched this myself, and of course we're trying to get
highly researched this.
Yeah.
Looking at his puzzle, I think you probably built that.
No, I was a gift.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, okay.
I would turn the camera, but by the time I would, you'd lose the whole picture anyway.
Giant Bigfoot puzzle.
Yeah. So friends of mine have actually made me about a 4-foot by 3-foot puzzle of Bigfoot. And my daughter saw it and said, that's terrifying. Well, think about this. Bigfoot has been an enigma in America since, again, back with the Native Americans. Mm-hmm. This isn't new. The Native Americans had these, what do they call legends? Is it a legend?
Legends.
And of course, nobody has really been able to debunk it. Now, the question is, why can't anybody find bodies of dead Bigfoot, right? Mm-hmm. But when you're looking at the amount of space in these forests, and I know I've watched quite a few really good documentaries, it'd be very difficult to find anything in a forest. even with the high-tech equipment they have today, it can be nighttime in a forest and it's daylight, because that's how dark some of these regions are.
There's just so many trees, so much foliage that it just blocks out everything. And then everything looks exactly the same.
I'm not sure that I've ever heard that a Bigfoot actually attacked anybody. Have you ever
I don't
heard?
think so. I've heard lots of things of sightings, and I think one of them, it was, at least that I had saw, was the biggest. They had thought that they had found him either dead or shot and killed him, but it turned out to be...
Oh, the pranksters. The pranksters are everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Well, see, it would be safe out there. No?
No. It'd be safe if Satan weren't in the world.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately...
And we wouldn't be given free will.
Well, yeah, so you still don't want to go in the woods.
I watch too many crime documentaries,
So
too many things to be foolish enough to travel at least by myself or with very, very few people.
crime documentaries are so big. Matter of fact, aren't crime podcasts like number one?
They are very big.
People love crime.
Documentaries, TV shows.
Do you sleep at night seeing this stuff?
I don't watch any of it at night. I have to watch it mid-morning,
Whoa.
afternoon. I can't watch anything in the evening because I don't want to dwell on that as I go to sleep, because then fear will just consume me, and I'd rather not have that.
Well, I've read quite a few things about how easy it is to get lost in the woods. I mean, I've been in the woods, and I usually have a good sense of direction, but I know of people that have went out into the woods, and it's easy to get turned around if you don't know how to use a compass, if you don't know where you came in to begin with. And most people don't. To be honest with you, people just go, and without really kind of understanding where their starting point is, what direction they came in, what direction they go. And that's something that you can't teach somebody. That's something that you'd think would be common sense if you're going hiking. Now, quite frankly, most parks have trails. And they have maps of those trails. So if you choose to go off trail, which many of these people have, they're going to take a shortcut. How do you know where the shortcut is?
I don't know how people have the confidence enough to do that. Even very experienced hikers don't usually stray from the path. And that's even a biblical sense. The path is very narrow, and we aren't to stray from that path, but we very easily can.
Yeah, very easy. And the thing is that, you go off, you try to get back on, or maybe you're not made for hiking. Okay? Now, myself, I looked up some things about, some of the weird things that have happened in forests. One of them was where a family was walking, and I mentioned this in our pre-show here. The family was walking single file together. I think
Out in a field,
down a path, and they were talking to the kids. Where one was behind them, and they turned a few seconds, and the child was gone. Now, my understanding, and of course from the report, was that the child had just been talking to them in an open field. I'll be honest with you, how fast can a child run away to get somewhere where you can't find them? Again, a mystery. So what are some of the other things that could happen?
the animal could get them.
Possibly.
Very quickly, just happen. Mountain lion, maybe if it was tall brush, never know. Could be hiding. Found a perfect opportunity, just swipe the kid into the bush.
Yeah.
Just happen to grab him to where he wasn't able to scream, or, you have those instincts where it's fight or flight, but there's also freeze, and a lot of the time people just freeze up and they don't know what to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a possibility. I know I didn't read the details on the particular case that was back quite a few years ago. But usually they do look at these things and they roll them out or they don't. Now, I know that many people have said that there are some really crazy things that happen in forests where you can go find yourself 100 yards, 500 yards away from where you were in seconds. Mm-hmm. I mean, And this is something that is not undocumented. This has happened. In fact, I think one of the small child we were talking about, it was a young girl, I think she was 5, ended up miles away, not able to figure out how she got there in such a short time. And this kind of leads to another theory that people have, that there are like portals that you can walk into. In fact, this is a theory that many people say Bigfoot uses, portals, that he walks in and out of portals because, you see, they see him and he disappears. I don't know.
Or it could be demons just playing tricks with your eyes, knowing
Maybe
that you can see them, and then they can just hide back into the spirit world and just sit there and laugh at you.
Well, most people don't realize that, that the world, back in the day when in the Old Testament especially, we talked about the Nephilim. We talked about it on a few other programs. And Nephilim are fallen angels. The Raphael, the fallen angels. The Nephilim are their offspring. And they basically bred with humans. And this is in, I think, the book of Genesis. And you can kind of read that if you want to take time to go find that particular passage. And, of course, it talks about in quite a few passages that these Nephilim were on the earth. In fact, they were huge giants because they grew into giants is what they were. Mm-hmm. And, of course, there was various types. But having said that, we know that they existed, and we know they existed across the earth. And we're not sure that all of them were eradicated. We're not sure if they had their own offspring. There's a lot of mysteries to this.
Mm-hmm. A lot of unknowns that we probably won't ever get the full extent of the answer to until hopefully one day when we are with God, those answers will be revealed to us, or we might not even care to ask.
By that time, you might not care. Yeah.
If I'm in the presence of God, I probably won't be like, so God, that one time
what
in
was
the
going
woods,
on there?
What was all that?
Maybe he might say, I know you have a question. And I do. I have a question because people in this world, we've just see so many really just strange things that have happened over the decades. And that's only the half of it. We're talking about forests. And, when there always has been. And for me, I'll be honest with you, there's something really a feeling of weirdness when I'm in a forest. I just feel that way. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. And it's just probably because I'm overwhelmed because unless you're dead mentally, you have to feel something when you see such a place because it's not, and if you live in a small town like we do, and so you're not privy to going into the forest. You didn't grow up there. It's like a new experience, like going to a new, totally new experience, like going to the Amazon. I mean, that's not something you can see on a video and experience in your heart or your body. I mean, going there just is overwhelming. And there's some strange stuff in the Amazon as well. Mm-hmm. In fact, I know that there are plenty of stories about some demonic activity in the jungle, and there are shaman that practice the dark arts in these tribal villages that live in the Amazon. So we know that there's a spiritual aspect to all this stuff, as Ashley mentioned. There's definitely a spiritual aspect. And for all, losing my voice people, and for all of us, we can only sit back and wonder. Now, if you don't want to go and investigate, I definitely am trying to get a group up to go.
It depends on how many people you get.
And
how many people's going, and then I'll be like, okay.
No, right off the bat, we are bringing weapons.
Okay, then.
Okay.
That helps.
It's funny when you find people that go into the woods and are going to camp, and they don't have anything but a small pocket knife to protect them. I'm sorry. Folks, firearms are your friend when it comes to these things. Mm-hmm. I have to be pretty sure that most people should think about having a firearm. Now, if you don't have one, that's another story. And, of course, you have to find the laws of the area.
Yeah.
But it doesn't hurt to be ready for any kind of strange things because, again, I think, Ashley, you said the story about the grizzly bear.
Mm-hmm. There is a show that I've watched, and I still watch. It is a true crime documentary. It's called I Survived, and it is all of these stories of people who survived these horrendous crimes or just random accidents. And there was a couple and their child who was camping, I believe, in Alaska, in a cabin in the woods, and it was nighttime, and he was leaving to let their dog Ladybug out to go to the bathroom, and Ladybug ran off into the woods and was barking and wouldn't come back when he had called her, so he then traveled into the woods as it was dark to retrieve the dog, and then the dog went silent all of a sudden, and he thought that was a little strange. I would think that's terrifying, and I would probably bolt back to the cabin in that instant, but he still continued to look for her, and he was maybe about 30 yards from the cabin, and he happened to turn, and he saw a grizzly bear charging at him, and it attacked him viciously, scalped him, tore up his back, and he fell to the ground. He's like, I need to play dead. And the bear still messed with him a little bit, but then decided to walk away. He waited a minute and then decided to stand up and continue to walk to the cabin. Yeah, not long enough. I would be counting at least 5 minutes, at a minimum 5 minutes.
2
I
days
need to make
later,
sure it's not standing there.
2 days later, Ashley's still on the ground.
Not sure if he's still there or not. And he stands up, and the bear wasn't gone. It was still there, and he heard him charging again, so he dropped, and the bear then proceeded to attack him again. And his dog Ladybug randomly came back. She wasn't dead. She came back and started to try and protect her owner. And eventually the bear had left, and he had gone up, him and Ladybug had crawled up back to the cabin where his wife found him at the door when she thought it was strange hearing the dog bark so much. And that was within, I think, 10 minutes of him just leaving. It happened like that. And it's crazy to think that something like that could happen so fast. And the wife was none the wiser in the house, thinking everything's normal, that the dog's just going to the bathroom in the woods.
That is terrifying. Mm-hmm. A grizzly's scary as it is.
Yep.
Now, what'd you learn from that, Ashley?
I learned not to go into a cabin in the woods alone, not to walk out of my cabin and let my dog out in the middle of the night, not to walk into the woods after the dog. Once the dog's silent, not leave.
Well, you heard it here.
Yeah, I wouldn't be doing a lot of things. Dog doesn't come back. Oh, this is a tragedy, but it'll come back or it don't.
This is safety tips from Ashley. Just remember, write those down, because those are safety tips from Ashley. Make sure you do not get stuck in the woods at night with a dog that disappears and a grizzly roaming the woods. Mm-hmm. Now, I think you mentioned that the grizzly had killed its prey.
They had killed a moose.
He had killed a moose.
That was, I forget how many yards away from the cabin itself. And that is why they believe that he was attacked by the bear, because it was defending its kill. It didn't want him, seeing him as another predator, didn't want him coming and stealing his kill. So it was making sure that he either died or he left the area.
Wow.
And they ended up putting the bear down, even against the guy's wishes who was attacked. Him and his family didn't wish for it to be put down, and it was found very, very close to the cabin. So that was already its territory. And I think that it shows what happens when humans try to, even though these things are very beautiful to be a part of, it shows what happens when we start pushing our limits and where we are and not giving the animals their own space.
Yeah, that happens a lot everywhere. I mean, just in our areas with woods being taken down for homes.
Mm-hmm. Homes that we don't need built.
Yeah, and of course then people wonder why there's deer in their backyard, why there's deer crossing the road so often. I mean, we don't think ecological anymore. We just want to move in and take what we want. Well, that's okay. You're in a neighborhood, maybe in your town they can do that.
In your HOA.
In your
community.
HOA, but when you're in like a national park, you're on your own. And, park rangers are there to warn you, and park rangers are there to recommend, but they can't protect you. I mean, you have to be on your own. In fact, I watch some of these Wendigo stories that are on. I fall asleep to these things, and usually there's like dozens of them. And it's interesting where people say, well, I didn't bring my pistol that day because I never thought I'd need it. You're in the midst of a forest with wild animals. and you didn't bring your weapon, you're going to go out there. And I know most people probably don't. Listen, people, if I can, I will. It's every man for himself.
Rather need it or not need it and have it than need it and not have it.
Right. And like Ashley mentioned, I mean, who hides in a forest? People will go into the forest and hide. Child traffickers. People have come across people farming marijuana, farming, and they've killed them for it. I mean, you just never know what you're going to come across. And it's so thick. And this little boy, one of the biggest, Dennis Martin, one of the biggest, recovery efforts trying to find him in history there. And they used everything. Of course, 69, they probably didn't have the same types of equipment we have today, infrared and a lot of the things they use today. But when you come down to it, it's still men on the ground and dogs and helicopters is what they mainly use. And they had a lot of people trying to find this boy, and they never did. And once again, we can all sit here and kind of question, well, you didn't keep an eye on your child. Well, you know what?
They were all in the vicinity of.
Yeah, I mean,
there are a lot of times where it is due, where you should have been watching your child. This could have been prevented had you been watching your child correctly. And you see that a lot, even at stores. There'll be parents who just leave their child alone. Child's all the way across, the store, crying because they can't find. They're just running around, and parents are like, "Oh, there you are!" And it's like, "Excuse me, your child could have been taken and gone, and no one would have even thought about it. No one would have questioned, a screaming toddler in somebody's arm, leaving. They're that child's throwing a temper tantrum with dad or with mom, and it's a complete stranger." There's a story. It was a park, and this mom, she was telling her story and her kids' story. She had it wasn't a park. It was a gas station restroom. She had two small girls who had to go to the bathroom, and she was pumping gas, and I think the youngest was maybe 5. And so she sent her two girls in together because she thought they would be safe into the restroom, and only one child came out, and she said, "Well, where's your sister?" And she's like, "Oh, I thought she already came out." And mom inside knew something was very wrong. And so she's looking, she looked in the car, wasn't there. She's looking around in the store. Maybe, she got distracted by candy or something like that and was looking around. And it was maybe 5 minutes. And she went into the bathroom and she called out for her daughter, and it was just silent. But she knew something was wrong. And so she went into the very back stall. I believe it was the handicap stall. And the door was locked, and she looked underneath and she could see there was somebody in there. And so she broke that door down. And here it was a lady. She has no idea who this lady was. Had her daughter, had her hand up her mouth, had already cut off all of her hair, and was changing her clothes. And she had the scissors in her hand. She had already did all of that within a matter of 5 minutes alone.
Wow.
And I don't know how she didn't beat the crap out of that woman.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have allowed that woman to leave that restroom alive. But she prioritized the child and grabbed her child and called the police and stuff like that. But it was a matter of minutes, and people don't think that it would happen to them, and it does happen to them.
Yeah, it is. It's a flash of an eye when something can happen, especially when you're not really paying attention. That flash is probably longer than you think, because she obviously left the child in there for longer than she should have, given that person the opportunity.
Yep.
And I'm guessing that's true. If you're in a foreign environment, which a national forest, no matter what, it's always going to be a foreign environment.
Yeah.
You should always be on high alert, because there are basically wildlife there. There's predators there, and depending where you're at. Here in Pennsylvania, we don't really have a lot, of predators. But if you go to Idaho, for instance, and I mention that because I know people that have lived in Idaho, they have them all. Packs of wolves and mountain lions and grizzlies, and all of them will kill you.
You go to Australia and all the animals are poisonous and
Yeah,
venomous
everybody.
and want to kill you.
Yeah, you're not a love being shown. Not a lot of love being shown there. You know, I
You
mean,
have kangaroos and koalas. You also got the most venomous snakes and spiders and
right? They do.
fish and how many sharks surrounding the island. It's like, yeah, that sounds great.
Yes, Ashley will never leave her house again. She'll be doing this remotely from now on. Wow, yeah. I think the bottom line is for us is that I think this is a topic that we wanted to kind of do first, not because it was very interesting, and I know I just been researching some stuff on missing persons, and I said, actually, how about that? She goes, oh, okay. We on this podcast, what we hope to do throughout the life of this podcast is to kind of delve into a lot of different topics, the mysteries. We've actually, on the Tomsic analysis, did really an hour program on food, and another mystery for sure, because a lot of food is a mystery. What is it? It's not real. Do you think a McDonald's hamburger is real?
I have a family member who, at least a little while ago, he happened to believe that McDonald's food or like big fast food chains like that happen to serve human flesh, like they're ground up in it, and it's all from people who are missing, who are trafficked and stuff like that. And it's like, is it a possibility? Yeah.
Everything's possible in this world today. But hey,
I wouldn't doubt it.
I know, I think we talked about just in the 1 hour program, and I think we could have did 12 hours on food.
We could have just done an hour on food dye alone, let alone
I mean, there's a lot. And
everything.
And so I think the thing is, when you deal with, who do you trust? You trust a food company, right? No, because after what we investigated, everything has got some type of crap in it. Mm-hmm. Burgers aren't real burgers. And so, when it comes to your health.
Additives and preservatives to make things last longer. Chick-fil-A's fries, we just realized we had gotten them, and we thought maybe they had changed their oil, but they just don't taste the same. They're gross. They don't taste good. Here, come to find out, they put now some type of coating over the fry to help them stay fresher longer. And it's these preservatives.
Save money. Again, everything's about money to a large degree. And, so, on this podcast, we're going to hit home a lot of these things that are really just, you wonder. And, you probably do too, folks. And you probably wouldn't be watching this podcast if you didn't wonder about what really happens in national forests. Are there really these weird creatures in there? Well, probably. I've not seen one. But let's be honest.
There is one time, and had I been told this story and had the person who was with me told me the story, a pastor friend of mine, he had picked me up, and we were the first at the church. We were going to the youth group, and it was dark. This church is in the middle of nowhere, Mount Hermon. Middle of nowhere. There's a cemetery in the back. It's surrounded by woods and farmland and all that.
What
so
could go wrong?
It's pretty secluded, and they have little street lights, and it's just the perfect setting for a horror movie. But as we were pulling up, the lights off and on, and it's kind of flickering, and you're like, oh, okay, whatever. So then we had walked up to the door, and he was starting to unlock it, and all of a sudden we hear a little girl's voice, and she said, "Daddy," like asking where he was. And we stopped and we turned and we were like, did we just hear that? And then we heard it again. And we were like, oh, and the light started flickering, and then it went out as she said it a third time. I was like, oh my gosh. And he's struggling to get the keys in the door, and we run in. And to this day, we don't know what it was, but it sounded like a little girl's voice was recorded and played. His mind went to, oh my goodness, it's a skinwalker. It's going to eat us. We're going to die. And my mind went to, oh my goodness, these are probably sex traffickers or some human traffickers. Recorded a little girl's voice to try and draw out people to come and check up. Because, if you hear a little girl crying or something like that in the voice, you're going to want to try and figure out what's wrong. That's just in our nature. And we had told his father, we told his grandfather. No one believed us. They still don't believe us. And they said that we were lying about it. And he, to this day, will tell you how scared we were.
Isn't that funny?
And he was going to leave me, too. Putting you on blast. I won't say your name, but I'm putting you on blast. You were going to leave me.
Wow.
All alone in the middle of the woods at a church. No one's there.
Yeah. We can do without that. Wow, that's a story.
It is.
There's some crazy stuff, folks. I mean, and you try to debunk it. Your mind usually tries.
It tries to rationalize.
Yeah, but you know what? This is the point. This is the point of this show because, listen, you can rationalize all you want. There are crazy things that I know people have told me stories that I won't even repeat because it's hair-raising things that they've told me. And I've always known that you can wash some of it out with, they're just telling a story or they're embellishing it. But there's always some that you just can't get around. And what happens in national forests is kind of bizarre to me because it's the fact that they won't tell you what happened. In fact, I saw a video, I think it was a David Paulides video in Canada. And a person took a car, it was left on the road in the middle of nowhere. It kind of rotted out, and they came back, and they were trying to investigate it, and the Mounties refused to release any information. They refused it. And to this day, no one knows what happened. They refused to investigate, or if they did, they refused to release their findings. This isn't an isolated incident. This is a lot. So the question that we kind of posed at the beginning of this show is, what is going on in national forests? We may never know. But we do know that there's bad people that could be there. Could these be all of that? Probably not. We do know there's wild animals. Now, the number of actually wild animal attacks isn't large against humans very often. It does happen. So you can rule out that it isn't 100% of that problem. You can add a lot of different things to it, but it always comes down to the missing parts that could be supernatural. We believe in supernatural things, and we know that even people who don't profess to be Christians know there's odd things like that as well. So how do you sort this out? Well, the question is there anybody out there that's willing to sort it out? Now, we have a guy that investigates, and I guess we're giving a plug to David Paulides on this show, but he is the grandfather of all this. So kudos to him. But he has opened a door to kind of showing the rest of the world there's something going on here.
And his videos have millions of views.
Yeah.
Millions. And he posts so many videos. They're not short, quick little reels.
No.
They're, 40, 50 minutes long and millions of views. So it's very nice that people are bringing attention to it. And I think it's nice bringing attention to the people who are missing and putting their name out
Absolutely.
there. As you're not forgotten. If they happen to still be alive, you're not forgotten. You're thought about. There's millions of people who, have now seen your case, and they might feel, to go and look a little bit deeper, or, if they live in the area, they might know more information or just anything like that. And it keeps it alive, and it keeps it going. It keeps the questions around, okay, what's really going on?
Yeah, because it'd be tough if you lost a loved one. You'd want as much information out there as you can get. And you hope that maybe the next situation, not that we want to see next situations like similar, but you have an idea of maybe that these are connected or not connected. You might find something that connects them enough to have another theory. This is not easy. Investigative work's never easy, and of course you're always at the mercy of people. They're willing to tell you the truth. Do they remember correctly? Listen, we know that if you sit in the ring with 15 people, and I tell Ashley something and she goes around, when it gets to me, the story's completely different. That's the way the human mind works. It isn't dishonest so much as it's the way the human mind works. And sometimes we block out things we don't want to believe. And I'm sure that happens a lot. They just don't realize that they had the evidence, they saw what happened, but they can't recall it because their mind just decided to block it out. So, and this goes back to, we mentioned Bigfoot, we mentioned skinwalkers, portals. Portals are a scientific fact, by the way. Physics sort of does say that they exist naturally. And of course, if you know anything about the collider, CERN in Switzerland, that's what they are doing there with that Hadron Collider. They're colliding atoms together that are particles to open portals. That's exactly what they're doing. And so physics, it is reality. And they do occur naturally in our world. In fact, I think it was the Mayans that in part of South America, there is a rock that they say is a holy rock, and it has, they say a portal opens there. And I think it was a group that went down to investigate it, and it was a Christian group. And they used equipment and such, and they found that there was something going on there. And suddenly a thunderstorm comes up, and all the equipment just gets all the electrical equipment just goes berserk. Now, is that a portal? The Mayans have said they were doing it with their ancestors for 1,000 years. Mm-hmm. Maybe. We don't know. We don't know these things. But again, sometimes we write off a lot of those stories because, it's the stories of the Native Americans. Well, believe me, they might say things differently, but the whole story behind it could be true. We'll never know until we see it for ourselves. And maybe if we saw it for ourselves, we wouldn't believe it.
I have no idea. I know a lot of people believe that Halloween is a time where portals are open from the dead to the living, and that's when they all travel. And the history behind Halloween is all surrounded around that. And it's I think it was an ex-Satanist, one of the biggest, and he's like, thank you for allowing your children to celebrate Satan on this day, because there's such a strong history behind it, and they believe it is a portal opening because of the time with the moon and just the time of year and everything like that.
Because the stars play a lot, and the moon plays a lot into that type of occult. They call it occult magic. Yeah. And Halloween, that's a Druid holiday, isn't it?
I believe so.
And I think you would go and give food to the graves.
Or they'd leave treats out on their doors so that way the monsters and the dead and stuff would come up and have it. They would have people would dress up in costumes as a way to blend in with the spirits and stuff like that, so that way they couldn't pick them out. There's a lot.
It's deep.
Yeah,
it's deep. And in fact, Mexico has Day of the Dead, their ceremony. They walk through the streets with these big skeletons and stuff, and it's similar. It's to appease the spirits. Mm-hmm. Interesting, isn't it? And again, as Ashley mentioned, who else knows what's happening in woods? Do they have, occult references in there? Do you have like meetings and covens or whatever they do, sacrifices? That's been proven to have happened. These things all are real, and to some degree, maybe it's not front page news, and maybe it's not something we see every day, but apparently it happens more frequently than we realize. Mm-hmm. They even talk about UFOs. In fact, David Paulides has talked about UFO sightings. I'm not a big UFO guy anymore. I was at one time, actually. I was Mr. UFO. I was a fanboy for the UFO Club.
I was going to say, have your inflatable alien
I got an inflatable alien. It's about as tall as Ashley.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah. Pretty close. No, you might be a little taller.
I was going to say, I can't see its full head.
Yeah, its full head. It's behind the studio light here. Mm-hmm. Orbs. They've seen orbs, haven't they?
Mm-hmm. Which could be just drones.
Well, yeah. Well,
could be. Not saying it is. Could possibly be.
I hear that, and you're right. Of course, orbs have been seen well before the era of drones.
Yeah.
Although
But do we really know when drones were created, or just when the government tells us that they were created?
I know that from watching Unsolved Mysteries. Anybody remember Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack? And I love that show. I love that show. I did. And they were talking in the 1890s of these orbs. And they would, people, in fact, one still occurs somewhere on a railroad track, I think in Missouri, and people go to see it. It appears. They don't know what it is. Have no idea. A mystery. Maybe we can go there and have a mystery. Oh, woods are nearby.
I think
Woods are nearby.
aliens are all demons. And a lot of people say, like, oh, they were caught up by aliens and abducted and all that.
I don't believe that.
I believe it's demons, and they're messing with your mind, making you believe, only revealing so much to you. When people believe that they're probed and they have these things in them, I believe that's a demon attached to that person, wherever it may be, in their arm, in their back, in their head. It's possession, and it's very...
In fact,
I believe it is demonic.
she's absolutely positively right on, because one of the premier UFO hunters from, I don't say UFO hunter, but he was the guy I don't know if you ever watched Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It was a big time movie. I took a girl when I was in college, took a girl to that movie. Worked out well. She loved that movie. And so the guy that played the investigator was French, and it was in this movie. And I found out that the real guy, he was modeled after a real investigator, Jacques, and I can't remember his name. He had 2 PhDs. He was a genius, and he was hired by the government, like in the movie, to investigate. Now, let me tell you the key. He later said that he didn't believe these were from planets anywhere. And actually, another researcher tuned in with him and said that these, that you said, like she said, was these things of probes and all these things that people fear and have nightmares. It was more like the tortures they did in the 1600s, in the Dark Ages. It was similar to this type of fear that these people had and were put under. So was it more psychological than it was physical? Yeah, probably. And I kind of agree. A lot of people don't. A lot of people refuse, and my brother did this occasionally. He said, do you really think there's, and he loves space movies. He loves them. He says, do you really think, he said, well, we'd be foolish to believe we're the only creatures on this big universe. It's this phrase they all use. Every single person.
Well, if you're a Christian and you believe the Word of God, then you'll believe that we are, because we are made after His own image, and it doesn't mention anything, everything, even the Nephilim, it's mentioned in the Bible. The fallen angels, the demons, God's angels, God, and then us and the animals. That's it. It doesn't mention, all these other planets and stuff like that. Even though they are there, that doesn't mean that there's, other universes or other...
if there's any life on any of them.
Yeah.
We don't, yeah. I mean, again, that's a mystery. It is a mystery. Mm-hmm. But she's right. There isn't any evidence of that. And the guy who did the investigation over the years said that he believes that the aliens they say that they are there, that exist, that these people have seen, and it's now part of our culture now. So you can't even get an honest story anymore, because everybody's seen aliens in movie and in TV. Mm-hmm. So you really can't differentiate reality anymore, because everybody has the same.
And everybody wants to be a part of that group.
And they
want to be a part of something.
And he said there's no way that they were built, the way we're looking at them, to transverse trillions of miles of space. I mean, the physiology and everything about it. So, yeah, I think Ashley's right there. I think we hope, people want there to be aliens. They want, because, gee whiz, every single movie.
I think they're really, really pushing, and I think the government's pushing, I think the enemy's pushing highly for aliens to be real. And I think they came out, I don't know what country it was, saying that the aliens are real. We have the proof, and it's this, what looks like the stereotypical alien, but mummified. And it's like, okay, well, if it's foreign DNA, why is it mummified the way that our bodies would be, or rocks would be? It don't make any sense. But I believe that it is all a plan of the enemy, so that way when the rapture happens and we're taken up, those who believe are taken up, they need an explanation for why these people disappeared. Mm-hmm. And what better way to say, well, aliens came and abducted?
Be a lot of people.
You're going to hear, I don't know if And there's a lot of mysteries and revelations, but I don't know if everybody will hear the trumpets that Jesus will blow. And notice how in a lot of alien movies, as the spaceships are coming down, what do you hear? You hear trumpets. And you hear these loud horns being blown, almost announcing that they're there. And so I think they're programming people to see these things so that way when it eventually does happen, whenever it may happen, it's an easily explained thing. Oh, well, the aliens came and they abducted these people and, all this stuff. And it's like, oh, well, I could see that being the reason why.
Yeah, there's a lot of people believe that the aliens will be used for the purpose of just doing that, to kind of distracting people from, what's really happening. And there's no doubt that there's some strange stuff. I mean, there isn't any doubt to that. But again, we see glimpses of things, and we try to then extrapolate and make a theory from very small bits and pieces, just like going back to the Roswell incident back in the 40s when the famous UFO was crashed, and everybody said that it was, they recovered alien bodies. None of this was ever proven. They've kind of manipulated the information that came from the Air Force. And remember, we were, at that time, it was part of the Soviet scare. We had bombers there that had delivered the only atomic bomb ever. So there was a lot of, strange things happening to protect the secrets that we had there, and the Air Force had with the atomic bomb. The fact that we were at war with now a Cold War with the Soviet Union, there was a lot going on, and it's hard to pull apart the myth of Roswell from what the government did behind the scenes to throw people off the trail.
And that's what a lot of things are, distractions.
Sure.
And that's what I see a lot of things, even sadly with the California wildfires. It's that huge thing that, has recently happened. And it's like, that's horrendous. I feel bad for the people. But at the same time, what else is going on? What are they trying to distract us from? And I know a lot of big name celebrities, they ended up leaving the country altogether. They moved to different countries. And it's like, oh, that's all those big time celebrities whose houses just suddenly burned down. And,
yeah, it's odd.
There was people's houses who, I think those people were somewhat connected, or people speculated if they were connected with Diddy, who's in jail for horrendous things.
Yeah.
Or waiting to be charged on these things. And, their houses just happened to burn down. They lost absolutely everything. And now they're moving to this different country. It's like, oh, yeah, it's all very
convenient.
Yeah, very convenient that this stuff is all happening.
See, these are the things that kind of make up our world today, and as much as we have with media and with all the Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all these things, you still can't see the truth anywhere.
And now with AI, you can't believe everything that you watch.
No.
And especially there was a video I was watching of it was a car that had exploded or something like that, and they were saying it's attacks and stuff like that, and here it was pictures and videos that were like from 2006 or something like that they just found, and they came up with this story.
This happens a lot more than you think. And I think, and we covered how many topics today?
I couldn't even count.
Can't even count.
We're all over the place. We haven't been here in a bit.
Yeah, we haven't been around together for a while in a conversation like this. But I want to let you know, please look out for our next video. Like, subscribe, and share to this channel. Also, my sister channel here, The David Tomsic Show. If you want basically news and geopolitical news and economic news and such, go to that channel. Again, that's The David Tomsic Show. We will be back here again.
Eventually. Hopefully soon.
We're gonna try to keep Ashley here on a close call here. We know that you guys love Ashley and not me.
I hear it a lot.
Yeah.
I hear it from you.
Yeah, people tell me, we like Ashley because she's beautiful, and you, well, you're a schmuck. So please, don't do it for me. Do it for Ashley.
I think we have, in a sense, two separate learning styles and just styles in general of how we do things. I'm very like, okay, if we're going to talk about it, we're talking about A, B, C, and D, and we're doing it in that order, and we're not moving from that. And David's a little bit more sporadic in the moment, but you're very good at it. You can just go and go and go. But my mind doesn't necessarily work that way. So I think it's a good balance between us. Is you get my mind working in the sense of a little bit more sporadic, whereas I try to rein it in just a little bit.
Yeah, that is true, and I think it works for us here. And I know, I know a lot of folks out there, and I know who you are going to be glad that she's back. Again, she was not fired. She was not. It was a thing that she had to deal with, and she's back. You can see she's in good spirits today. She did a really good job. We love having her here, and we love having you here. Again, don't forget to follow us. We're going to be on Facebook. I'll post some things there. And again, we'll see you next time here.
On the Tom Psychanalysis. Oh, no, wait, that's not what this is.
No.
What is this?
We'll see you next time on Nights Around the Fire.
That's it.
Yeah, we got it right.
That is my one brain fog moment.
Here it is. The end of the video.
Yep.
See ya.
I can see my face is beat red.